According to Hashirama Senju, Sasuke bears a strong resemblance to Izuna Uchiha. He has black eyes and spiky black hair with a blue tint. Sasuke's hair is long and has hung over his face as bangs since he was a child, which as he gets older he allows to grow longer and, in turn, cover more of his face. After acquiring his Rinnegan, Sasuke grew his hair to cover the left side of his face, notably the eye. He is considered handsome by most girls near his age. Sasuke's typical clothing has changed several times throughout his life, but the Uchiha clan's crest is usually present somewhere on his clothing, such as on the back of his shirt collar. For most of Part 1, he wears a navy blue, short-sleeved shirt with a high collar, white shorts, and, for a time, white arm warmers. During the Chunin exams finals, he wears a black, one-piece version of this usual attire with many small belts adorning his left arm and similar bands around both legs. He wears a blue-clothed forehead protector with both of these outfits but starts wearing it less and less after being hospitalized by Itachi, finally abandoning it entirely at the end of Part 1. In Part 2, Sasuke consistently wears dark blue pants, over which hangs a blue cloth that covers him from his stomach to his knees, which he secures with a purple rope belt, as is common to Orochimaru and his followers. He initially complements this with a white long-sleeved shirt kept open at the torso and black arm guards that cover his forearms. Leading up to and during his battle with Itachi, he replaces this top with a sleeveless dark gray shirt and the arm guards with bandages on his wrists. He switches after Itachi's death, wearing a white, gray in the anime, zippered, high-collared, short-sleeved shirt and blue wrist warmers. He wears a hooded cloak over his clothing at different points, usually, an unadorned black one during his pursuit of Itachi alongside Hibi, and for a brief time, sported the trademark Akatsuki cloak, only with a hood instead of the regular high collar. Sasuke loses his left arm at the end of the Fourth Shinobi World War, though, unlike Naruto, he opts not to have it replaced with a prosthetic arm made of Hashirama Senju's cells that were prepared for him at the time. In the last, Naruto the movie, he wears a black high-collared shirt, a midriff-exposing flak jacket, and light gray pants. Most of this goes unseen, as he wears a tattered light brown poncho over it. He wraps bandages around his ankles and a blue sash around his head during this appearance. In Sasuke Shinden, Book of Sunrise, he wears a black cloak over a black shirt and pants with a white belt and white bandages wrapped up to his knees on both legs. In his later adulthood, Sasuke dons a black cloak with purple lining, and a gray, long-sleeved, collared shirt, over which he wears a periwinkle vest. He also wears black pants, a purple belt, and dark gray fingerless glove on his remaining hand. He once again wears his forehead protector, letting it hang from his left hip. 22. Sasuke also grows significantly taller by adulthood, becoming slightly taller than Naruto, who is one of the tallest in his graduate class. At the beginning of Boruto, Naruto Next Generations, the color scheme of Sasuke's outfit is revised, having his black cloak gain a storm flap, a maroon cinch on the collar, and maroon lining. His long-sleeved shirt gains light gray cuffs, and he wears a pair of brown leather belts with a black sheath for his sword, a brown shuriken holster, and brown shinobi boots. Whilst in the past, Sasuke wears a long trench coat over his outfit, and a fedora hat to hide his identity, and when not wearing his fedora, Sasuke sports an eye patch over his left eye to hide his Rinnegan. Like his older brother Itachi, Sasuke is recognized as a natural prodigy of the Uchiha clan, graduating at the top of his class in the academy. He makes a strong impression on Kakashi Hatake in the bell test and could fight on par with strong shinobi, such as Haku and Gaara in Part 1. After being under Orochimaru's tutelage for 2.5 years, Sasuke becomes strong enough to fight and even pressure Akatsuki member Itachi, as well as the Fourth Raikage. With the Six Paths chakra, he is compared to the Sage of Six Paths by Kurama, which is demonstrated when he helped overwhelm Madara as the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki. Madara himself stated he would have chosen Sasuke over Obito as an apprentice if he was born years earlier. 23. as an adult, despite losing his left arm, his performance has shown no signs of impediment, as he could fight on par with Kinshiki Otsutsuki. Ultimately, he is regarded as a legendary shinobi that, like Naruto, is referred to as the strongest shinobi, with the Hokage viewing him as his only equal. The pair's combined strength is thought to be able to destroy the world. Likewise, the two together were able to overpower Momoshiki Otsutsuki, who absorbed Kinshiki Otsutsuki, something the other four Kage combined struggled against separately. Sasuke's chakra is quite strong, in part due to being the reincarnation of Indra Otsutsuki. Whenever Sasuke's curse of hatred deepens, others remark how much stronger, darker, and more sinister his chakra becomes. His reserves are also quite large, enough to use Chidori twice a day during Part 1 without aid. By Part 2, Sasuke can use Chidori and related techniques multiple times in a single day, as well as summon creatures as large as Manda. His chakra control, though less refined than Sakura Haruno's, is nevertheless very high. In the anime, he could effectively perform hand seals between his own and an enemy's hand. In adulthood, after losing one of his arms, he learned to use one-handed hand seals. His chakra's strength was also potent enough that Urashiki Otsutsuki openly commented on the strength of the chakra he stole from Sasuke, noting it was magnificent. While not an actual sensor himself, during his final battle against Naruto, he sensed Naruto's buildup of chakra and natural energy from Kurama. Also, in sharing half of Hagoromo's power with Naruto, he can sense Naruto's chakra from a different dimension. Sasuke is very capable in taijutsu, enough to hold his own in hand-to-hand combat against multiple opponents at once. His most consistent physical display is his speed and by extension his reaction time. Haku remarks on how impressive Sasuke is in both regards during their battle. After reawakening his Sharingan, Sasuke concentrates on honing his speed and reflexes so that he can react to the Sharingan's heightened visual information, which he accomplishes by imitating Rock Lee's movements. His speed is even shown to match, if not exceed, various other fast techniques like the Shield of Sand and Lightning Release Chakra mode respectively, and enough to physically incapacitate opponents before they realize he's even approached them. Between his increased speed and taijutsu prowess, it becomes very difficult for his opponents to find enough time to perform even a single hand seal. Sakura, after re-encountering Sasuke for the first time in Part 2, finds the improvement in his abilities unnaturally high and hypothesizes that he was given drugs by Orochimaru. Orochimaru is known to have experimented on Sasuke, enough to make him immune to poisons, but it's not known what other modifications he may have received. Despite his immunity to poison, Sasuke remains vulnerable to gaseous poisons, as his shadow clone was affected by Garashi Tono's poisonous gas. He acquires some of Orochimaru's attributes after absorbing him, such as additional chakra reserves, a faster healing rate, and the ability to shed his body, all of which are lost when Orochimaru is removed from him. He later receives half of Hagoromo's power, which he is able to keep. Orochimaru brands Sasuke with the Cursed Seal of Heaven after their first encounter in Part 1. When active, the Cursed Seal saps Sasuke's chakra and replaces it with a larger amount of Orochimaru's, in turn increasing his strength and speed. Though useful, Sasuke's early uses of the Cursed Seal are often involuntary, painful while active, and leave him briefly unable to move afterward. These shortcomings are either minimized or eliminated once he becomes able to enter the Cursed Seal's second state, a transformation that turns his skin gray, lengthens his hair and causes him to develop wings. The transformation's boosts to his physical parameters are similar to a Jinchuriki's version 1 forms, which by Part 2 he can isolate to parts of his body. Itachi removes the Cursed Seal from Sasuke's body during Part 2, preventing him from using it again. However, he remains compatible with the Cursed Seal's source, Yugo, allowing Yugo to provide him flesh or chakra if the need arises. Sasuke learns to summon snakes during his time with Orochimaru. He typically summons them as shields, rapid ground transportation, or to bind targets. Unseen outside of the animal path, Sasuke can also summon a second animal species, hawks. His use of hawks is more limited than snakes, using them only for flight and the additional maneuverability that allows. By adulthood, Sasuke can use the shadow clone technique, able to easily produce 8 clones at once. As an Uchiha, Sasuke is trained with a variety of different ninja tools. When he was a child, he once used, inexpertly, a bow and arrow to hunt a boar with Itachi, a practice that later becomes useful for his Susanoo. His area of expertise is in shuriken jutsu, allowing him to throw shuriken and kunai with precision. For complicated or moving targets, Sasuke can guide shuriken to their mark using either wire strings or deflecting them off each other. Though his throwing speed is faster than most, it doesn't compare to Itachi, prompting him to devise the lightning flash blade creation. By sealing shuriken and kunai into his arm bracelets, Sasuke can always have a large supply ready, allowing him to barrage targets in an instant. Sasuke begins using a sword after training with Orochimaru, wielding it just as skillfully in either hand. He uses what he calls his Sword of Kusanagi regularly throughout Part 2, often to cut down multiple opponents in a short period. He uses it defensively as well, blocking incoming attacks or holding off skilled swordsmen. By adulthood, Sasuke becomes skilled enough to instantly switch between wielding his sword backhanded and normally even during a clash. Sasuke can use all 5 basic nature transformations, as well as Yin release, 2 of which he could utilize at the age of 13. As an Uchiha, he has a natural affinity for fire release, mastering the clan's great fireball technique years before becoming a genin, a feat which greatly shocked Kakashi. Sasuke can also coat fire around his shuriken, guide his flames along with wire strings, or create a succession of dragon-shaped fireballs. His fire release prowess is shown to be strong enough to easily disperse most water release techniques, and by channeling chakra through materials, could rapidly increase their temperature, enough to instantly melt glass. In Sasuke Shinden, the teacher's star pupil, Sasuke shows significant prowess with water release, having been able to quickly generate massive quantities of the element. Having noted that his water release contains no impurities, Sasuke states that his techniques do not conduct, but insulate electricity. During his fight with Haku, Sasuke attempted to copy the latter's ice release techniques, inspiring the creation of his own, but admitting inferiority to the former's. Applying what he learned, he developed a way to manipulate the state of water, using wind release to freeze it or evaporate it to create steam. Whether summoning water near or at a distance, Sasuke can instantly freeze a target and is even capable of creating a bridge of ice to cross over the ocean. Like typical ice release users, the immediate weather conditions are also affected. Using wind release, Sasuke can alter surrounding air resistance to decrease air resistance, allowing him to quickly reach his destination. Sasuke is also a formidable user of lightning release, making his first use of it with the Chidori taught to him by Kakashi. While effective at piercing most targets, the standard Chidori is a very close-range attack. For this reason, Sasuke uses the principles of Chidori to create several long-range jutsu in Part 2, such as throwable needles, extendable swords, and scattershot streams. He often channels his lightning chakra into his Sword of Kusanagi to increase its cutting power. When using his Cursed Seal or the Six Paths chakra, his lightning chakra becomes darker in color, though it's not clear if this changes its actual properties in any way. By adulthood, Sasuke is capable of using his lightning release to further augment his speed during the battle, to the point it matches Kinshiki's speed. Sasuke first awakened his Sharingan on the night of the Uchiha clan downfall, though he isn't able to do so again until several years later. At the start of Part 1, Sasuke's Sharingan is especially potent, as Orochimaru noted that despite not being fully developed at the time, it was even stronger and greater in clarity than Itachi's. Later, his prowess and skill with his fully matured dojutsu earned him the nickname Sasuke of the Sharingan, Sharingan no Sasuke. With the Sharingan, Sasuke can see the flow of chakra, accurately reproduce any movement he sees, his physical skill permitting, track fast-moving objects, and, by the end of Part 1, predict opponents' movement to a degree. He can also use Genjutsu, Sharingan for broad purposes such as distraction, interrogation, knocking targets out, or placing them under his control. He can use his Sharingan to relay information to others or enter their subconscious, which in the case of Jinchuriki allows him to suppress their tailed beasts. His Sharingan was also shown to be able to wipe people's memories within a specific time gap. Sasuke awakens his Mangekyo Sharingan after Itachi's death, once he comes to terms with the fact that Itachi was the single most significant relationship he had. Its design gives the appearance of 3 intersecting ellipses. Sasuke is warned before receiving his Mangekyo that using it deteriorates the user's eyesight, and for that reason, Toby repeatedly recommends that Sasuke take Itachi's eyes to gain eternal Mangekyo. Sasuke puts off doing this until he's nearly blind. Just before the start of the Fourth Shinobi World War, the transplanted eyes resemble a cross between Sasuke's and Itachi's Mangekyo. His eternal Mangekyo is a straight tomo, choku tomo, type, granting him fluidity in his movements when fighting. Sasuke's acquisition of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan seemingly enhanced his mastery of its techniques. Before, he was quick to exhaust himself both physically and chakra-wise when he would overuse his power. After acquiring it, he was able to repeatedly use its powers against Kabuto, Obito, Madara, and Kagaya with no signs of exhaustion. With either Mangekyo, Sasuke can use Amaterasu, igniting whatever he looks at with black flames that can burn anything. With his right Mangekyo, he can use Kagetsuchi to shape the flames into a variety of forms for offensive or defensive purposes, such as spikes to impale people. This ability to manipulate his Amaterasu makes him more skilled than Itachi was with his own. Having awakened the Mangekyo in both his eyes, Sasuke can use Susanoo, a spectral warrior that protects him and acts on his behalf. It takes repeated uses before he's able to fully form Susanoo. Its evolutions are often marked by moments of intense hatred. Initially, Sasuke can only create Susanoo's skeletal features, such as ribs for defense or arms to interact with his surroundings. He is steadily able to layer musculature and skin over the bones, and later armor to increase its defenses. Upon receiving the Rinnegan, with its supreme ocular power, he is able to create the significantly larger complete body, Susanoo, comparable in power to tailed beast mode. Like all Susanoo, Sasuke has several swords at its disposal that it can use against larger targets or to easily destroy nearby structures. More commonly, his Susanoo employs a bow that can fire arrows at rapid speeds and that can, when needed, double as a shield. Though most of these arrows are made of the same chakra as Susanoo itself, Sasuke can also fashion arrows made from Amaterasu's flames or, by channeling the tailed beast's chakra, lightning. Sasuke calls the latter Indra's arrow, his strongest attack. Susanoo can also be formed around the Nine Tails to give it a sword and armor of its own and serve as a medium for his various techniques like Chidori. After receiving half of Hagoromo Otsutsuki's chakra as well as possibly being healed with Hashirama's cells, Sasuke awakened a Rinnegan in his left eye, with 3 tomo on each of its 2 innermost circles. However, should Sasuke's chakra reserves fall to a certain level, the tomo vanishes and the Rinnegan takes on the commonly known appearance. Unlike his lower dojutsu, Sasuke's Rinnegan is permanently active, apparently unable to revert to its original state. Despite this, it has no effect on his stamina or chakra levels. Likewise, Sasuke's Rinnegan can still access the techniques and abilities of his left-man Gekko Sharingan. The dojutsu gives Sasuke the ability of pattern recognition, being able to help him analyze patterns inside codes, and by comparing them to similar patterns, decipher the writing. It also grants him access to the various abilities of the Six Paths techniques, such as forcibly attracting others towards him, or trap individuals in the Chibaku Tensei through the Deva path, or absorbing chakra through the Preta path. He can also use it to see invisible targets, repel the effects of the infinite Tsukuyomi, and turn his Susanoo into a vessel for the tailed beast's chakra, much like the demonic statue of the outer path. His signature, if not unique, ability with the Rinnegan is Spacetime Ninjutsu. With it, he can perceive distortions in the flow of time, able to see events that happen as normal, although it is unknown if he can negate the effects on himself. His first and most frequently used technique is a Menotejikara, which allows him to instantly swap places of any two targets in a specific range. In adulthood, his spacetime ninjutsu became advanced enough to travel through dimensions, even with others. These interdimensional portals manifest as dark oval-shaped spirals. Upon Boruto Uzumaki stabbing it while being controlled by Momoshiki Otsutsuki, Sasuke can no longer use the dojutsu. Sasuke is very intelligent, having earned top grades in his academy class. In combat, he usually remains on the offensive, rarely pausing in his attacks or falling back to regroup. Rather, Sasuke observes as he goes, being mindful of all factors on the battlefield and analyzing his opponent's techniques to understand their mechanics and purposes. He is accordingly accustomed to coming up with tactics on the fly, choosing whatever approach, no matter how elaborate, will be most successful at the exact moment. His strategies could be considered irresponsible or risky, as he has on more than one occasion placed himself or allies in harm's way. Despite this, his actions have the tendency to pay off, earning praise for his analytical skills from Minato Namikaze and Madara Uchiha. Jigen would also praise Sasuke for having eventually figured out the nature of his technique and even went as far as to say that his analytical skills coupled with his dojutsu made him more dangerous than Naruto, who was deemed his equal. Despite how he proceeds in the midst of combat, Sasuke does tend to be prepared before entering a fight, or as best as he can. He specifically trains to be faster than Gaara-san. He attacks Orochimaru at the moment when his body is weakest. He equips himself with the lightning flash blade creation so that he can compete with Itachi Uchiha's speed. He may even have a strategy in mind that he can work towards throughout a fight, as when he spends part of his fight with Itachi creating conditions for Kirin, even relying on Itachi's jutsu to facilitate its use. He has shown tactical sense in teamwork, able to instantly understand an ally's battle plan with little communication and act accordingly to make it successful.